Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to the Hindu News Analysis for 25th July 2024. Now let's have a look at the articles that I'll be discussing in today's analysis. The first article, which is applicable to all of you, but do not expect a question directly from this article in the civil services examination. The article titled UPSC to implement biometric authentication. Very much relevant, very much applicable to all of you who are going to write the civil services examination conducted by the UPSC. Apart from that, the 7 other very important articles on which questions will be asked in the civil services will be 1. Immunity under Article 361. Is it absolute or there should be certain restrictions? Supreme Court of India has taken up this issue. Second, ICMR ready to transfer technology for TB detection system. Very important article, considering you are going to write the examinations, let's say next year prelims, at least those who are writing, because 2025 is the target year for ending TB in India. Fourth article, Supreme Court suggests forming a panel to hold talks with the farmers. Right to shelter is a fundamental right, rules the Supreme Court of India. RBI tightens cash pay-in and payout norms. Grasslands in Gujarat to host cheetahs from Africa. And finally, the 8th article, small information, India is committed to free trade agreement with United Kingdom. So these are the 7+1 articles that I'll be discussing in today's analysis. The first announcement. If you are preparing for the civil services examination 25 as well as 26, we have an offer for you. And this offer is going to be available only for the next 2 days. The offer price is 23,999, in which you can get access to the textbooks, the weekly exams, the English classes, etc. If you're interested, again I reiterate this point, I have been told that the offer is available only for the next 2 days. Please check out the details in the link given below. Now let me take up the first article. Again I said this is going to be applicable to all of you, those who are going to write the civil services examination conducted by UPSC. UPSC conducts 14 examinations for the central government, let's say recruitment. The examinations conducted are for Class A as well as Class B services provided by the Government of India. Essentially, in recent times, there have been certain concerns raised regarding the sanctity of the exams conducted. Certain events have taken place, not only in the exams conducted by UPSC, but also exams conducted by NTA. Now, the UPSC has announced, again this was done in the month of June itself, it has announced that they will use the technology to address certain malpractices, certain concerns that they have regarding conducting of the civil services examination. What kind of technology are they talking about? And if you think of it, there could be a question even in the ethics paper regarding adoption of technology. How do you address all of these issues, etc. So basically the UPSC says, once the candidate will apply for the civil services examination, now they will have to provide details of their Aadhaar. And once the hall ticket is issued to you, in the hall ticket, there will be a QR code. There will be a QR code. Once you go to the examination hall, even before the entry of the examination hall or at the center itself, they will conduct the biometric test. In essence, they will be finding out whether you are the right person who has applied for the exam and the same person who has come to write the examination. In a sense, earlier there have been practices where if I put up application, if I fill application for myself, I'm not good in the civil services test or the paper, I will send somebody else to attend the examination on behalf of myself. So now UPSC says we will try to address that. We will check your Aadhaar credentials. So next time if I want to basically cheat UPSC in this way, I'll have to cut my fingers and send it along with the person who is going to write the examination. And some of you will say, okay sir, we can do that also. Ekalavya did it, we can also do. Again, when I say Ekalavya, he cut his, basically the thumb. So argument is, now not only this, there will be a QR code in your hall ticket. Once you are in the examination hall, they will scan the QR code and again it will take them back to your Aadhaar credentials such as your photo. They will check whether you are the same person. In addition to this, the UPSC has also stated that they will use the CCTV, the video surveillance now. They will be using the CCTV video surveillance just to see the activity of the people, just to see the activity of the civil service aspirants in the examination hall or in the examination center. In addition to that, they have also proposed usage of live monitoring, GPS system, etc., etc. So next year when you write the examination, be aware these kinds of reforms can be implemented by the UPSC. Now, this is just for the sake of information. I do not expect directly the questions to come in the civil services based on, let's say, what reforms UPSC is implementing. But this article, very much important. Immunity which is provided under Article 361, is it absolute or there should be certain restrictions attached to these immunities? The question has been raised by the Supreme Court of India because now there is a petition which has been filed at the Supreme Court. Now, before I discuss about the petition, what is the Article 361 saying? The Article 361 of Constitution of India has basically 4 provisions like this. 361 Clause 1, 361 2, 361 3 and 361 4. But more importantly, Supreme Court of India now has stated that they will look at the 361 Clause 2, which basically states that no criminal proceedings shall be initiated. I repeat, no criminal proceedings shall be initiated or instituted or continued against the president or the governor when they are in their term of office. When they are in the office, no criminal proceedings shall be initiated or continued. In addition to this, in the Article 361, the first clause itself says, whenever the governor or the president of India, in continuing or in the implementation of the duties, performing the duties which are provided by their officers, they shall not be dragged to the court. They are not answerable to anyone when they perform their duties. Of course, the Supreme Court of India in an earlier judgment already has stated that if a governor, for example, in case of Rameshwar Prasad versus Union of India, the governor of Bihar, basically it was the case of regarding the state assembly. Right? In such cases, when the governor takes a call to dissolve the assembly, state assembly, back in the year 2005, Supreme Court of India ruled that if this is done with a malified intention, if such decisions are taken with a malified intention by the governor, we will have the power to review them. Supreme Court of India clearly stated that when governor takes a decision, president takes a decision, they enjoy immunity, no doubt. But if these decisions are taken in a bad faith, then we will review such decisions. So Article 361 provides a certain immunity to the governor, the president, when they are in the office and when they perform their duties which are allocated to such an office. And this is not a new discussion in India as well as around the world as well. For example, very recently, in one of the discussions of Hindu News Analysis, there was a discussion regarding the Supreme Court order in USA regarding the President Donald Trump, the former President Donald Trump. In this month itself, on the 1st of July, the Supreme Court of USA has ruled that whenever the president does perform the functions, either the current president or the previous presidents, there shall not be any criminal prosecution conducted against this president when they demit the office based on what they have performed or based on what they have done during their tenure. Based on the decisions that they have taken, because they are the president, you cannot conduct a criminal proceedings against them. So again, the argument is, in case of India, now Supreme Court of India is asking the question, should we continue to provide blanket immunity? That is, any kind of, let's say, the act conducted by the governor or the president, should we simply turn a blind eye, provide them with the immunity? Will this not be, let's say, violation of fundamental rights? Will this not be against constitutional morality? Will this not be unethical? These are the questions raised by the Supreme Court. They have sought the feedback from the government of India. Now, all of this started with filing of a petition where one of the women worker, who was a contract worker in the governor's office in West Bengal, went to the police and stated that she has been harassed by the governor. Sexual harassment claim was raised. But the Bengal police cited Article 361, and it is said that they did not take up this particular case on expediency. They had a very cavalier approach. So this woman has approached the Supreme Court of India, asking Supreme Court of India certain questions. Point number 1. When such type of immunity is provided to the governors, don't you think there should be a limitation, and under what circumstances such immunity should be provided? Point number 2. If I wait for the governor to demit the office, or basically move out of the office, how many years should I wait for justice to be provided to me? And what about the evidence till that point of time? And the person is very powerful. Governor or a president is a very powerful person. In such cases, what about my safety and security? And more importantly, by denying justice for me for so many years, by denying the justice to me for so many years, is it not violation of Article 21? So these were some of the concerns raised by the petitioner in the Supreme Court of India. Now a 3-judge bench headed by the Chief Justice of India, Justice Chandrachud, they have taken up the petition. They have asked the government of India's viewpoint regarding their concerns. But much more importantly, understand this, much more importantly, this concern is not a new one. It was raised during the deliberations when we were discussing regarding Constitution of India. The very same article, that is Article 361, when there were discussions being conducted in the Constituent Assembly, there was an INC member, Indian National Congress member, in the month of September 1949. In the month of September 1949, during the deliberations, Mr. H.V. Kamath raised the same issue. The concern that was raised by Kamath at that point of time, or Mr. Kamath at that point of time, was, when you provide immunity to the governor like this, is it during the term of the office, that is a prescribed term of the office, or till the person is there in the office? Which means a person who has been alleged to have committed a crime will continue to perform the functions or duties and continue to hold the office of the governor. So that kind of a concern was raised. It was not addressed. We have adopted, in fact, this particular Article 361, when the deliberations were conducted, was referred to as Draft Article 302. Draft Article 302. So these are some of the issues related to the article provided here. But more importantly, like I said earlier, this is not the first time that the High Court or the Supreme Court is talking about the protection to the governor, protection to the immunity to the governor as well as President of India. There have been earlier instances also, and certain judgments have been provided where certain protection or the immunity has been given by the courts. For example, in case of State versus Kalyan Singh and others, State versus Kalyan Singh and others, This is a very old case, Babri Masjid demolition case. The Supreme Court of India basically stated, or even the High Court basically stated that because the case is filed against Mr. Kalyan Singh, who was the governor at that point of time, it was stated that let the person who is the governor, let him be provided the immunity now, and once the person will demit the office, will move out of the office, the case will be initiated, action will be initiated against this particular person who is not a governor anymore. This was the order issued by Supreme Court of India. Second, Ram Naresh versus a state of Madhya Pradesh. Here in this particular case, this is associated with Vapam scam. In that particular Vapam scam, the governor of the state was also one of the implied persons, or he was also implicated. The Madhya Pradesh High Court stated that the FIR can be filed, but we will basically hide the name, or we will not display the name of the governor till he is there in the office. This was in fact appealed in the Supreme Court of India. Supreme Court of India did not rule in this particular case because in 2016, the person, that is the former the governor, Mr. Ram Naresh, passed away. So these are some of the instances in the past which have been discussed in the judiciary, which have been taken up by the judiciary regarding the protection or the immunity that is provided to the governor as well as the president under the Article 361. Remember one more important point here. Although Article 361 provides immunity for the governor as well as the president, it doesn't provide immunity for the central government or the state government. In essence, if I want to sue the central government, again imagine, if I want to sue the state government or the central government, the governments are not protected under the Article 361. I can easily file a complaint or I can sue them in the court of law. So these are certain points. Please make a note of this. This issue will continue to be in discussion with Supreme Court of India picking it up. Third article, ICMR ready to transfer technology of TB detection system. TB stands for tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is a disease. The cause or causal organism or tuberculosis is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Now, why this article is so relevant, so important? Point number one. Around the world, there are many countries which even today suffer because, or the people in the country suffer because of tuberculosis. Point number two. India accounts for generally more than 1/4 to 1/3 of the total number of cases of tuberculosis every year. According to the article provided here, annually in India, around 4.8 lakh people die because of tuberculosis. Because of this, 4.8 lakh people die. That is almost 500,000 people annually, which roughly translates to around 140 people every day. Understand the importance. 140 people every day in India are dying because of tuberculosis. And it's not that government of India has not done anything to contain or act against tuberculosis. Historically, the government has been implementing multiple reforms. But even then, why are we not able to contain tuberculosis? Why are we not able to address the issue of, let's say, the disease of tuberculosis in India? There are multiple causes. First one, generally whenever a person will have a tuberculosis, or let's say have a disease of tuberculosis, there are two stages. One is called as a latent TB and the second one is called as an active TB. And one of the ways through which we will identify that we might be having tuberculosis is sustained coughing. If you keep on coughing for 3 to 4 weeks continuously, it is generally an indicator that the person has tuberculosis. But the problem is, these kind of symptoms are generally not visible in a patient, or let's say a person who has contracted TB. These kinds of, let's say the symptoms are not visible in the first couple of weeks, or it can happen even after many years as well, or after many months as well. That is basically inactive tuberculosis or latent TB. And in case of the latent TB, the person might have the bacteria. Bacteria is inactive, person doesn't know. And thankfully, whenever the person has a latent TB, please understand, they cannot transmit TB to others, because TB is very contagious, very contagious. That is, if I have an active TB and if I keep on coughing, sneezing, then the droplets that will come out will carry the tuberculosis bacteria. And if that enters into the system of somebody else, there are very high chances that the other person will also contract TB. And in a country such as India, which is heavily populated, has a lot of areas where population density is very high, even if there is one person with an active tuberculosis, they annually might transmit this to more than 5 people. They will end up transmitting this to more than 5 people, and because of very high population density in many of the cities, many of the villages in India, the spread of tuberculosis is very high. And this is not the only factor. Whenever a person is, let's say, detected to have tuberculosis, there is a regimen, a drug regimen is there. The drug regimen of basically providing the medication, it spans for the period of 6 months according to World Health Organization data. It has to be done in 2 phases, 2 months and 4 months, totally 6 months. But in case of India, generally there is a social stigma that is attached to people who have contracted TB. Social stigma. We are afraid what others will think. We are afraid, what our family members will think, etc., etc. And that is the reason it is said most of the times people will start taking medication. Somewhere in between, they will stop taking the medication. And what is the problem with this kind of a stopping of the medication before you complete the regimen like this? When you stop the medication somewhere in between, the bacteria which is still alive in your body, it will become drug resistant. It becomes a drug resistant. And the problem with this is, when this bacteria become drug resistant and people will transmit these to others, many more people will contract a TB, which is a drug resistant TB. And the problem with the drug resistant TB is, we use antibiotics to treat TB. We use multiple types of antibiotics. Because of the drug resistant strain of TB, it becomes very difficult to treat TB now. And it is said, I hope you understand this, it is said, if a person contracts a drug resistant TB, the expenditure that will be a huge burden for this person. The treatment regimen will continue for many months now. On day-to-day basis, the patient is supposed to take multiple tablets, and the amount of money that is spent will run into lakhs of rupees. And another problem with treating the drug-resistant tuberculosis is side effects. In many of the cases, there have been side effects such as hearing losses, many other side effects. So there is a problem with respect to controlling of TB because of various, let's say, the social, implications, or people not taking the complete medication, etc., etc. Apart from this, generally when we have cough, including me by the way, or even when you have the cough, or let's say you have seen this, in your surrounding itself, when we have cough, generally we take self-treatment. We become doctors at that point of time. We take self-medication, or somebody will say take this, we will take that medication, this medication. Many experts say because of this kind of a self-medication itself, there is also a possibility that the TB has become drug resistant. That is, the bacteria have become resistant to the kind of drugs that we are consuming. And please understand, in many such cases, even if I have TB, I will not get the test done. I'll simply say it's a cough. It will go after, let's say, 1 week, after 2 weeks, etc., etc. And suddenly I will realize that this is a much bigger problem. At that point of time, my lungs would be infected. At a later stages, my other body organs would also be infected. And in many cases, because of this itself, the TB becomes fatal for the patient. Now, one of the problems, right? So we have understood the issues now. What are we doing in terms of, let's say, medication? Why are we not able to diagnose this much earlier? There are multiple tests which are there to diagnose. But the availability of the test in every part of India is a constraint. It's a constraint. Second, even if the test is available, what about the cost factor? What about the cost factor? The cost would also be higher. So because of certain issues, we are not able to contain tuberculosis. In fact, Government of India has stated that by 2025, we want to eradicate TB. We want to end TB in India. And this 2025 target, many experts say it's very ambitious for a simple reason. The United Nations has set up a target of ending TB by the year 2030. So government says we are going to end TB 5 years before United Nations target itself. So to implement this, many reforms, or to address this, many reforms have been implemented. But please understand, one of the biggest constraints regarding ending tuberculosis was availability of the test, the cost of the test, right, etc. Now ICMR says, ICMR now has announced, that is Indian Council of Medical Research has now announced that they have created a new diagnostic kit. A new diagnostic kit has been created by them. The name of this technology is a CRISPR-Cas-based TB detection system. CRISPR-Cas-based TB detection system. And they argue that this new detection system or the diagnostic kit is very, very cheap. According to the notification issued by ICMR, this kit will cost you 35 rupees to conduct a test and find out whether you have TB or not. First one. Second one, this is very easy test. It can be conducted even at the village level. Even at village level, that is where the primary health care centers, PHCs, the primary health care centers where these are present, you can easily conduct the test. And simultaneously, within 2 hours of time, 1500 samples can be checked to find out whether there is a TB, that is a bacterial strain, which is present or not in these particular samples. So these are some of the very important features that have been attributed to this new technology introduced by ICMR. Now please understand, ICMR is a government-owned entity. And whenever these government-owned technological institutes like this or scientific institutes create a technology, they do not go for commercial production by themselves. They will enter into a tie-up with a third party, let's say a private sector company, transfer the technology, help in the commercial production, help all of this in the commercial production. That is exactly what has been done by ICMR now. They have called for applications. Any private sector entity is interested in producing this in mass, that is commercial production, and then introduction in the market. So this technology is very important related to TB, please remember. Okay, associated with this, the first MCQ assignment for all of you. Consider the following statements. There is no vaccine for TB. UN and India have pledged to end TB by 2025 and 2030 respectively. All those infected can transmit irrespective whether they are in latent or active stage of tuberculosis. 3 statements. How many of the statements are correct? If you know the answer, do let me know in the comment section. 4th article, Supreme Court of India has suggested forming a panel to hold talks with the farmers. Now what is the issue? Why is the Supreme Court of India recommending this? Understand. A 3-judge bench of Supreme Court very recently heard the government of India, that is representative of government of India as well as the state government of Punjab and Haryana. The argument is simple. In the month of February, there was a farmer agitation conducted. Farmers wanted to go all the way to Delhi and protest against government policies. And they had different demands. One of their main demand was to have a statutory status to the MSP. The state government of Haryana, they basically erected or basically placed certain restrictions, that is at a Shambhu border. They placed restrictions for movement. They placed barricades which did not allow the farmers who are protesting to pass the barricade and move towards Delhi. And since February, these barricades are still in place. Now, regarding the barricades, the Punjab and Haryana High Court took a note and they directed the government of the Haryana government, asking them if they can lift the barricades, if they can release some of the people to move across the border like this, rather than simply placing a restriction since February. Now, against this order of Punjab and Haryana High Court, Supreme Court of India was approached. Supreme Court of India, 3-judge bench, the judges have asked certain questions to the lawyers representing the government. Their question was, first, have you tried talking to the farmers? The government said, yes, we have sent certain representatives who have held the talks with the farmers, and there is no, let's say, consensus between the government as well as the farmers. The judge basically said, when you send a minister as your representative, don't you think minister would always talk about the government policies? The minister would always highlight what is government doing in order to protect the farmers. And as a result of this, there is a trust deficit. I repeat, as a result of this, there is a trust deficit that is existing between the farmers as well as the government. The farmers want somebody to listen to them, somebody who will hear their side, and the minister that is sent by the government as a representative will always put forward the viewpoint of the government rather than listening to the farmers. So there is a trust deficit. So what should be done in this regard? The judge in the Supreme Court bench stated that, why don't we appoint certain neutral parties, certain people who are experts but neutral to both the sides. Neither are they taking the side of the government nor are they taking the side of the farmers. Why don't we appoint a certain group or a panel consisting of such neutral parties who will go to both the sides, that is the farmer, try to talk to them, convince them what is right, what is wrong, approach government, provide the viewpoints of the farmers, try to bring in certain changes in the viewpoint of the governments, ask the government to consider the viewpoint of the farmers as well. So this panel has been recommended by the Supreme Court bench now. Against this, the representative of the government argued that it's a law and order matter and it is best left to the state. It should be left to the states, let the states handle. The judges said, government is also a state. Government is part of the state. So how can we simply say, let the states handle it? Try to talk to the representatives now and tell us, are you willing to form a panel which will talk to both the sides which are part of this friction? So this is what has been recommended by 3-judge bench of Supreme Court of India regarding holding talks. In addition to this, yesterday there was one more piece of news which was discussed in a lot of newspapers even today. Again, only one point of discussion here. Many of the farmers, after listening to the budget announcements, and even in fact today's Hindu newspaper, multiple articles such as editorials are filled with budget discussion itself. We have discussed a lot of things in the budget. That's the reason I've not taken up any articles in the editorial. So this article simply talks about the fact that some of the farmer unions have approached different members of different political parties which are in opposition. Their viewpoint is, Government of India should consider the interest of the farmers and provide the statutory status to MSP. And the opposition member parties should raise a concern, hold the government accountable in the parliament. So these are the two articles in discussion regarding agriculture sector. Please be very, very careful. But before I go forward, I have a question for all of you. Has the Government of India set up a committee to review the demands of the farmers? If yes, please do let me know who is the chairperson of that committee. Who is the chairperson of that committee who is going to submit the recommendations regarding the demands of the farmers. Are they feasible? Not feasible. Who is the chairperson? Let me know. Next article, important one. Right to shelter is a fundamental right. Right to shelter is a fundamental right. Again, this has been issued as an order or as an observation by a Supreme Court judge. 3-judge bench, same 3-judge bench. That is Justice Datta, Justice Bhuyan, and Justice Kant. Same 3-judge bench which I discussed in the earlier article, same 3-judge bench. There is one observation now. Right to shelter is a fundamental right. Now, what is the discussion here? In what context is the Supreme Court making an observation that right to shelter is also a fundamental right? Let me tell you a very nice story here. Back in the year 2013, one person went to Uttarakhand High Court and filed a PIL. And in that PIL, the contention was very simple. Here is the Gaula River. Okay, here is the Gaula River, which flows in Haldwani area here. And along this Gaula River, there is illegal mining which is being conducted. Is it okay? In 2013, there was a person who approached Uttarakhand High Court and filed a petition. And the petition was simple. There is illegal mining being conducted, illegal sand, right, let's say mining which is being conducted along the banks of Gaula River. And one more observation was added here. Many people who are involved in conducting this illegal mining belong to an area surrounding the railway station. And if you're wondering, sir, where is railway station? I'm not able to see. This is a railway station. Many people who are involved in the sand mining are people who are residing surrounding this region of railway station. Now, as a result of this, in 2016, Railways was made a party to the PIL. Is it okay? Point number 2. As a result of this, in 2016, Railways was made a party to PIL. Now, Railways stated that many of the people who are residing in the region here are residing in an area or a land which is owned by the railways. Right? Railway said this land is owned by me and these have evacuated or these have to be evacuated. These people are residing in the region, in the area that is owned by me. Against this, the people who are residing here, around 400 plus families, they went to Supreme Court of India in 2017. Supreme Court of India in 2017 issued an order, told Uttarakhand High Court, consider the viewpoints of the people who are residing in there. People who are settled there, consider their viewpoint also. Talk to them, right? Hear their claims as well before you issue an order. And an order was issued by the Uttarakhand High Court in December 2022. And what was the order? Uttarakhand High Court said, people who are residing here, they have simply occupied the land of railways. And because the land is belonging to railways, these people must be evacuated. And the number of people that were targeted in this evacuation was more than 50,000 people. The High Court said, conduct evacuation in the next 7 days. And if the people do not leave, give them a chance. If they do not leave, use necessary means. Use force to vacate this particular region. Again, this was appealed in the Supreme Court of India. Supreme Court of India said, don't vacate them. Right? Supreme Court of India put a stay on the order that was issued by Uttarakhand High Court. The Supreme Court argued that, how can you vacate more than 50,000 people in 7 days? How can you vacate? They might have taken this land illegally. They might have. Because there was a counter argument which was put forward by the people who are residing in this region. They had deeds. They had papers to prove that they have purchased the land legally from someone else. And they have been living on this land for many, many decades now. So their argument was, how can you basically say we have occupied your land? We are living on our land which we have purchased. There are documents. So Supreme Court of India said, do not evacuate that, let's say 50,000 people in 7 days. There is a human angle. You can't do that. They might have illegally taken the land, but there is a human angle. Second, Right? Can we have a system where certain settlement can be provided to the people? And that is exactly what is being heard by Supreme Court of India now. Right? Same thing is being heard by the Supreme Court of India. Now it is said that because of higher rainfall, because of the floods activity, etc., certain infrastructure which has been constructed in this region has been affected. Now Ministry of Railways says, or the Railways basically says, I want land. I want land so that I can develop the infrastructure. But other people who are residing in that region, they are saying, this land is owned by us, we will not vacate it. And to prove, Railways is also having documents. Railway says, I conducted a survey in 2017. I have maps which shows that I have ownership of this land which are dated long back, 1970s, 1960s, etc. So Supreme Court of India, after listening to both the sides, now has issued an order. What is the order? Point number 1, Supreme Court of India says, in the next 4 weeks, give me 2 sets of information. One set of information, how much land would be required for railways to construct the infrastructure? Is it okay? How much land would be required for the railways to construct infrastructure? And second, at the same point of time, also tell me how many people would be affected because of such acquisition. If you take up the land, how many families would be affected? How many people would be affected because of that? And more importantly, can we provide rehabilitation to such affected families? Can we provide rehabilitation? Right? That is the reason the Supreme Court Justice basically stated that right to shelter is also a fundamental right. In fact, there was one more argument. The government has initiated action against the people who are settled in this region or on this land. They have initiated action. Please remember the name of the act here, Public Premises Eviction of unauthorized persons. Public premises eviction of unauthorized occupants. Unauthorized occupants Act of 1971. Act of 1971. So the council, right, the lawyer representing the other party asked Supreme Court, can we take action against the occupants under this act? Because the stop has been put by the earlier Supreme Court order. There is a stop of the order implementation. So we have yet to initiate action. We are yet to start the taking of the action under this act against these families. So Supreme Court of India said, don't take any action right now. Next 4 weeks, submit this data and thereafter we will take a call. So this is right associated with the concept of right to shelter as a fundamental right. But more importantly, understand this. Look at the bigger picture. Please look at the bigger picture. What is bigger picture? There is a need for having a very fine balance regarding land as a factor of production. Land is required for households, for let's say, right, settling down, constructing houses, etc., etc. But at the same point of time, land is also required as a factor of production to conduct farming, to conduct manufacturing, to promote a services sector, to increase the GDP of India. That's the reason land as a factor of production is very much essential for you. In fact, before the elections were announced, in one of the speeches, Finance Minister stated that Government of India will continue to implement reforms under factors of production such as land and labor. And in fact, if you have seen the budget or heard of the budget or even seen the discussion regarding the budget, you will know that government has taken initiatives to promote reforms in the labor segment. But what about the land? There is a lagging reforms in case of land as a factor of production. In fact, associated with the land, there was a question which was asked by UPSC in the mains of 2021. How did land reforms in some parts of the country help to improve socio-economic conditions of marginal and small farmers? 150 words and a 10 marker. Now, because there is so much of discussion related to land, I thought of giving one assignment question to all of you, again associated with the land. This will be mains answer writing assignment number 9. To realize the complete benefit from the economic reforms, there is a need to increase the pace of land reforms. In this context, discuss the status, reforms and the challenges faced by the government in implementation of land reforms. 150 words, 10 marker. It can be even 250 words, 15 marker. Now to help you write this answer, answer to this question, I have given one article. This article appeared in the Financial Express on 21st March of 2024. Very, very recent article considering UPSC term of current affairs. The title of the article is Land Reforms Modi 3.0 may pick low hanging fruits. Please read this article. Lot of interesting fact is provided. Lot of interesting information is provided here. You can use the data provided in the article to write a very effective answer to the question given here as an assignment. Done. Let me go to the next article. But before that, those who say, sir, we are very weak in Indian economy. I do not understand the basics of economy. So what should I do? For you people, we have launched an initiative, Economy for Beginners, but this is on the platform or on the app. And the person who takes these classes is myself. Today at 12 p.m, class number 9 will be conducted. If you are interested, please go to the platform, join the session. And if you are interested to get, let's say, certain notes, certain information regarding current affairs in Indian economy, weekly collection of important articles from different newspapers, etc., you can join my Telegram channel. The QR code is there right in front of your eyes now. Okay, 6th article. RBI tightens cash pay-in payout norms. What is cash pay-in and payout norms? Generally, whenever I discuss regarding the concept of payment banks, one type of a niche bank, whenever I discuss the concept of payment banks, I tell the students or the learners, payment banks are not allowed to provide loans or credit cards, but one way they are able to generate revenues, not very much, but certain extent. One way they are able to generate certain amount of revenues is because of the remittance services. I generally tell them, because the students will definitely ask me a question, sir, if the bank is not allowed to provide a loan, what is the source of revenue for it? There is a source of revenue. Multiple sources are there. One of them is remittance services. Now, what do you mean by remittance services? Let me take a very simple example. I am a worker who is involved in the agriculture sector. Agriculture, labor in simple terms. And I've migrated from my hometown to another state where in one of the field I am earning money, but I don't have a bank account. Now, some of you will say, sir, how can you not have a bank account? My dear, do not look at today's situation and come to that arrangement or let's say decision. You'll have to look at 2011, 2012, 2013, etc. Because that was the time period when Reserve Bank of India introduced the concept of domestic transfer guidelines, domestic transfer framework. And that was also the time period when RBI introduced the concept of niche banking in the form of a small finance bank and payment bank. So argument is very simple here. I've earned certain amount of income. I want to transfer it to my parents, my spouse, my children who are very far away. So your answer should not be, sir, take a bus, take a cab or take a flight, go to your village, pay the money and come back. Right? By the time I reach the place, I will not have any money left. It doesn't make any economic sense whatsoever. But I don't have a bank account also. In such cases, what should I do? RBI said there is a facility, that is a pay-in and payout, cash in and cash out facility provided by banks. What is this cash in and cash out? Right, have a look at this. Pay in and payout. What are these guidelines or the norms? Very simple. I will go to a bank. I am a walk-in. I don't have an account in the bank. On that particular day, I will simply transfer 5,000 rupees. I will simply give 5,000 rupees cash to the bank and my parents will go to the bank in my native place. They will receive the money. This is essentially called as pay-in and payout services, remittance services. And this is being provided by the banks and even banking correspondents. even the banking correspondents will provide this particular facility. In fact, banking correspondents work for a bank. Simple, they work for a bank. But there is one problem. What is the problem? What if instead of me being an agriculture labor, I'm generating a lot of black money? I want to launder this money. Launder essentially means convert black money into white money. I want to be involved in the money laundering. Now what I'll do is, I will walk into a bank, I will provide 5,000 rupees to the bank manager, and that would be transferred, remitted to somebody else, right, who is my friend, who is my partner, etc., in other part of India. So these channels could be misused by the people. Fraud transactions can be conducted. Money laundering can also be conducted. Although please understand, although looking at the requirements, RBI said this is not for rich people. This is not for people who will transfer, let's say, 1 lakh rupees. We are looking at certain sections of the customers, or let's say certain sections of the society who do not have bank account. That's the reason the limit that was imposed was 5,000 rupees. 5,000 rupees maximum per day, and in a month 25,000 rupees. In a month 25,000 rupees. So that was the restriction that was imposed under the facility of pay in and payout by RBI. But even after these restrictions being imposed, RBI has found that fraudulent transactions have been conducted. These methods have been used for money laundering purposes. And that's the reason very recently RBI governor gave one statement. There are lakhs of mule accounts, he said. I'm pretty sure you've heard of this or read of this in the newspaper without understanding what is it. Or you have simply skipped, right? RBI governor will keep on talking every day. Who will read about RBI governor every day? So you'll skip it. So RBI governor says there are lakhs of mule accounts. Mule accounts essentially are those accounts which are used for some other purposes, for fraudulent transactions. So lakhs of mule accounts are there in the system, and these are being used to conduct frauds, cyber frauds, etc. So RBI governor said there should be action taken by the banks to control the generation of mule accounts. Second, following up on those announcements, or let's say the statements of RBI governor, yesterday RBI has issued one more document. Now they have increased the let's say the regulations, or let's say certain measures have been imposed whenever any customer uses pay-in or payout, right, let's say facility of a bank. What kind of restrictions, what kind of regulations have been imposed now? Let's say I want to transfer funds through pay-in and payout services. Now I will have to provide a document. Second, if I don't have a bank account, I will have a mobile number at least. Now the person or the bank, that is business correspondent or banking correspondent or bank sathi, or let's say the bank itself, to whomsoever I approach and ask them to provide the pay-in services, they will ask for my mobile number and they will authenticate it. They will check whether this is a right mobile number and this is a number given to me or not. So that data will be collected when I will provide pay-in services, or I'll opt for pay-in services. When my relatives or let's say my family members, etc., will opt for payout, they want to take the money, they will also have to submit the documentation. So now RBI says whenever the banks or business correspondents will provide these kinds of services of pay-in or payout, documentation will be sought. And this documentation will be entered as a part of the transactions which are conducted by the banking sector. Right? So these are certain very important points regarding the new norms which have been announced. Basically, it has been done to ensure KYC. Effective KYC, know your customer, know your client norms have been strengthened by Reserve Bank of India. But please remember the concept of pay-in and payout. Associated with this, here comes the second assignment. Consider the following statements. An individual to transfer funds must have a bank account. Many of you, until now, until the discussion of pay-in and payout, you would be under the impression that you need a bank account. Now think very carefully. SFBs and payment banks are allowed to offer remittances and loan services. How many of the options are correct? Is it only one? Is it two? Both are correct? Both are wrong? What is the right option? Do let me know in the comment section. Seventh article, Grasslands in Gujarat to host cheetahs from Africa. Government of India, couple of years ago, brought in cheetahs from different countries. Some of these cheetahs were brought from Namibia. Some of these cheetahs were brought from South Africa under basically the Project Cheetah. The argument was very simple. We will introduce these cheetahs in one of the national parks, that is Kuno National Park. Kuno National Park, which is present in Madhya Pradesh. So totally 20 cheetahs, 12 from Namibia and 8 from South Africa were brought into India, and they were introduced in the Kuno National Park. It was expected that these cheetahs would get acclimatized, adapted to the climate, and their population will start increasing, etc. But many of the cheetahs were not able to adapt to the change in the environment. And many of them, in the first 6 or 7 months of introduction itself, they died out. In fact, there was a lot of criticism against the government of India's implementation of this Project Cheetah. But now, many of the cheetahs have got acclimatized. Point number 1, acclimatized in the sense they have got used to the weather, the climate in the surrounding region. Second one, in this year alone, 12 cubs have born. Total number of cheetahs now is 13 adults and 13 cubs. So there are totally 26 cheetahs which are present in the Kuno National Park. In addition to this, Government of India has plans to bring in more cheetahs, import more and more cheetahs, introduce them, so that over a period of time there will be a sustainable population of cheetahs in India. To do that, now they have identified one more national park, that is Gandhi Sagar Sanctuary in Madhya Pradesh. Gandhi Sagar Sanctuary in Madhya Pradesh, that has been identified as the right area or right place to introduce next incoming cheetahs. But in addition to this, the Central Zoo Authority very recently has approved establishing a research center, that is a breeding and conservation center. The breeding and conservation center that has been approved by the CZA, Central Zoo Authority, is proposed to be set up in Bunny. It is proposed to be set up at Bunny. Again, it is present at Run of Kutch. It is present at Run of Kutch, Gujarat. Now, what is the argument? We will be establishing a breeding and conservation center. The space that is available is very large, but there is a concern which has been raised. There is an important concern. The concern is that if cheetahs are introduced in this, the breeding and conservation region that has been identified right now, they may not have sufficient amount of prey. Because obviously, cheetahs means they will require, they require to hunt, prey on some animals. And the animals are also given here. Antelope species such as a chinkara and a black buck, the numbers are not sufficient. And right now we do not have any plans to import and introduce the prey that is required for these cheetahs. So argument is, yes, this area which has been identified right now is a very good initiative. We can develop the specimens, or we can basically breed these cheetahs in this region. But do we have sufficient prey for these cheetahs to sustain? In fact, even at Kuno, the prey that is available is sufficient for 26 adult cheetahs. 26 adult cheetahs. So now there is a discussion, should we introduce the incoming cheetahs, should we simply take them and introduce them in, let's say, the Gandhi Sagar Sanctuary, which is a thought out area, or should we take some of these cheetahs and introduce them at Bunny Park or Run of Kutch region, where we want to establish the breeding and conservation area. So these are certain very important points discussed in this article. Have a look at it. Now the final article, very small one. India committed to free trade agreement with United Kingdom. Now this article comes in the background of the minister, the foreign secretary, David Lammy of United Kingdom, on a 2-day visit to India. This foreign minister has met even the external affairs minister and also held consultations or the talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And this is important for a simple reason. there was a change of government in United Kingdom very recently. Elections were conducted, the ruling party lost elections, and there is a new government which has been set up. Now this new government wants to consolidate the relationship that they have with India and also continue talks with India so that there is a free trade agreement which has been signed. But please understand, talks with India or talks between India and UK regarding signing of the trade agreement is not new. This has been happening for many years now. So far, more than 10 rounds of talks have taken place. I repeat, so far, more than 10 rounds of talks have taken place between India and UK regarding free trade agreement itself. But there are certain sticking points. There are certain points where on which there is no consensus between the government of UK as well as the government of India, such as the strict regulations regarding rules of origin that India has, the data localization rules that India has. So there are certain issues which need to be ironed out, and after the rules or after these disagreements are ironed out, you can see a trade agreement being signed between India and UK, that is a free trade agreement. And as such, please understand, India is not only negotiating free trade agreement with UK, it is also negotiating one with European Union. It is also negotiating another with USA. We want to extend the coverage of trade agreement that we have with Australia, etc., etc. So there have been multiple countries or the trading partners with whom we are negotiating or already have entered or seeking review the trade agreements that is being done in the last couple of years itself. So these are certain important points which are given in the article. In fact, in the article, irrelevant information for civil services is provided. Right? How many days he is there, which minister he has met, next where he will be going, right, etc., etc., which is not relevant for civil services whatsoever. So these are the various articles that I wanted to discuss with you people today. We want to make this initiative as a one-stop destination for all of your current affairs requirements. To do that, we will require your assistance. Assistance in the form of giving comments in the section and more importantly, subscribing to our YouTube channel. If I yet to do that, kindly do it now. Thank you. Have a great day.
NCERT books are unavoidable to crack the IAS exam. Not only is the content of these books authentic, but these books also help a civil services aspirant to build conceptual clarity. And most importantly, lots of questions in the civil services examination are directly asked from NCERT books. But the aspirants often find it difficult to cover these books, or worse, they even end up ignoring these books. We at Unacademy IAS English are going to make the reading and understanding of the NCERT books easier. We present NCERT Fundamentals course, a free initiative of Unacademy IAS English. What are the highlights of this program? Comprehensive coverage of the most relevant NCERT books for the civil services exam. Prelims and mains practice questions in each session to test your understanding of the fundamental concepts. This course begins from 12th of July every day at 6 p.m. right here on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel now.